Welcome to the Focus and Chill podcast, where we discuss productivity tactics that work for neurodiverse individuals.
Every episode, we interview guests with lived experience of neurodiversity who also have a solid productivity and habit game, and pass the learnings on to you, our wise and benevolent audience.
We're your hosts, Jeremy and Joey.
I'm Joey, and I coach creatives to get moving on their most ambitious projects through the power of solid habits and strong focus. I'm also a perpetual student of psychology and perpetually on a quest to a one-armed chin-up.
And I'm Jeremy. I'm a neurodiverse software developer turned startup founder building habit and focus software for people with ADHD. My cool party trick is leaving parties early so I get to sleep on time to do my 3-hour-long morning routine. The Focus and Chill podcast is brought to you by Focus Bear, a habit and productivity app that makes healthy habits and deep work the path of least resistance. If you have a tendency to check emails or scroll through Instagram first thing in the morning, but long to develop a meditation and exercise habit first thing, Focus Bear can help you. The app blocks distractions on all your devices and guides you through your habits one at a time. Throughout the day, Focus Bear assists you to stay in deep work by blocking websites and apps that are unrelated to your chosen focus mode. Life's not all about work though. You'll be prompted to take regular breaks to rest your eyes and stretch your muscles. At the end of the day, Focus Bear helps you switch off. Work-related apps get hidden so you can unwind and sleep well. Check out the app by going to focusbear.io. Welcome to episode 19 of the Focus and Chill podcast. Today we don't have a guest, so we're going to talk about some of the interesting habit journeys we've been going through ourselves, including some disruptions to our normal routines. We're going to take it in turns to talk about a challenge that we've had or are having, and we'll explore ways that we'll be able to get out of the ditch that we might be in right now. I've certainly had some disruptions recently as part of some travel, which really messed up my routine. And Joey, do you want to talk about yours a bit?
Yeah, sure thing. So a lot of people are saying that the current influx of AI technologies have been disrupting a lot of things. And I've been experiencing some disruptions in my sleep because I've been so into it. I've been playing around with Stable Diffusion, and it's one of those things where if you don't approach it correctly, it can be a slot machine where you're just constantly hitting the generate button and seeing what will come out. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, and that's what keeps you going. And so yeah, it's been tough because I've experienced many a night where I've been like playing around with it till about 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning. And yeah, it's not really where I want to be. I'd much prefer waking up a little bit earlier, especially given daylight savings has ended and we got less daylight. I'd love to just take advantage of more of the daylight and be embraced in the sunsets and the sunrises a bit more. But yeah, such is life.
And we were talking before about the way that it's not necessarily maladaptive except for the daylight side of it, because you set your own schedule. So for someone who works 9 to 5, it would be terrible, but for you, it's only like a little bit bad.
That's it. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's difficult to really understand if it's if you're going to say it's a problem, you should say like, okay, so by what's the problem you're trying to solve here? I guess the only thing I'm trying to solve is like I want to experience more daylight, and then it just comes down to, well, what's a stronger priority for you? Creating art that is currently just blowing my mind at the moment, or getting a bit more daylight. And right now, I can't really like if like at 11 p.m. or 10 p.m. where I'd like to cut off. Like if I was gonna like if like Jeremy was going to call me and say, hey, Joey, are you prioritizing making mind-blowing art over getting a couple more hours of daylight? I'd say, hell yeah, I am. And I'd absolutely have no shame about that. And I think in the mornings as well, I don't necessarily wake up with regret. Like I don't necessarily, right. If Jeremy were to call me at like midday and say like, what time did you wake up? And I'd say like, oh, like 9 a.m. And you're like, well, you missed out on a whole bunch of daylight. I said, yeah, but look at all this art that I made. Like, yeah, I still wouldn't really regret it that much. And so I think that's a sign that it's probably not maladaptive. But I think I'm at an extreme at the moment, and I think there's a more middle path that I'm just trying to walk my way back to.
I wonder if you might be maximizing daylight with your current strategy, because I was staying with Joey for a few days and you weren't really doing that much stable diffusion during the day. You were doing other things. You went out for a nature walk during the day. And then when you got back, when it was evening, that's when you got into stable diffusion. So that's maybe true. In the current daylight environment, maybe your current strategy could be optimal.
That's it. That's a good way of looking at it as well.
So Huberman probably wouldn't like it because you're missing out on the golden hour at sunrise.
Who wouldn't like it?
Huberman.
Oh, Huberman. I don't have a skipping rope either, so he wouldn't like that either. But I have been finding one of the things that I've been trying to be more intentional about is catching the light, especially at sunset. If I can catch it at sunrise, it's good. Like I have a friend that likes to catch up every month, and he wants to catch up like around 7:30 in the morning, and so it means I end up waking up at about 6:30, and so it is the last bits of sunrise coming up, and it's beautiful. And generally, like after finishing up with his friend, I'm like, I'm on such a high, and I'm just like feeling like I just want to do this every day, and so could just be a case of just wanting it all, right?
Yeah. Which I guess you could have if you adopted the Uberman sleep schedule and you went to bed at 1 a.m. and you got up at 6 and then you had a nap during the day. But that might be not optimal either.
I always thought the Uberman one was where you sleep for 20 minutes at a time and you're awake for 4 hours. Is that what you're talking about as well?
Yeah, just napping more frequently.
Yeah, sure. Have you tried that before?
I've tried it when I've done hackathons, and it has felt like I've been completely wrecked afterwards. I think it might be appropriate if I think they originally invented it possibly for long-distance sailors who really needed to be able to be alert at all times because they might need to quickly bring the sail in. But for most of our environments, it's probably not necessary.
And possibly quite difficult to implement as well, just because I hear that it's a more brittle schedule as well. So like if with our what do you call like the sleep schedule where you is it nocturnal where you just sleep for a long period at night, or the one where you sleep for a longish period at night and then you have a power nap in the afternoon. I can't remember the name.
Biphasic sleep.
Biphasic, that's right, yeah. So I feel like that routine has a bit more give to it. Whereas I've heard the Uberman routine, if you don't get that 20 minutes on the dot, you it's not like you're gonna die, but it's just like the degradation in your energy level is just like so much steeper. I don't know, have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I remember reading Steve Pavlina's blog back in the day because he was one of the early advocates for polyphasic sleep and he did relate that exact experience.
Yeah.
It's interesting we talk about it because I believe Salvador Dali and some of the popular artists, they did adopt unconventional sleep schedules.
Yes. I love the was it Dali the one that fell asleep, like he took a nap with a fistful of coins? That key, yeah. That's like I'd love to try that sometime. I've tried many times to do lucid dreaming. I think I've hit it once or twice. But yeah, I'd love to be able to do it consistently. Yeah.
Yeah. You might wake up with the perfect prompt for stable diffusion.
That's it. Yeah. Tell us about your disruptions, Jez.
It's interesting. Our editor was asking us to talk about bouncing back from when you're on a holiday. And I experienced that because I was in Sydney, which is another city in Australia, for the last week. And it was nice. I got to catch up with Joey and some other friends, and I was there for a startup event. And I felt that overall it was a very rich experience. However, I also got captivated a bit by AI, not generative art, but I was trying to get a feature working in the FocusBear app where you can basically talk to FocusBear and it can give you some motivation and also allow you to interact with settings. And we were looking at, can we block using ChatGPT as well? Mm-hmm. I found that very exciting, and I was trying to get a demo prepared, which meant that I ended up working not quite as late as you. I stopped at, I think Monday night was about 10 p.m., Tuesday maybe 9:30, and Wednesday 10 o'clock or so. Normally my cutoff time is 6:15 p.m. So there's quite a big overlap there. And I didn't feel very good about it. I didn't get as much sleep as I needed. And I didn't really complete all of the evening practices that I normally like to do. It's the kind of thing that I can handle for a couple of days, but I know that if I keep it up, then it really throws me off. And there were issues where I didn't do my practice of looking at my calendar the next day, and then I nearly forgot about a meeting. So I can see how it very quickly will lead to unmanageability. And it tends to be quite common for me when I go on trips. I think it's just being in a different environment and potentially also not having my wife with me, because normally there's a bit of social buffering there, that we have an agreement between ourselves that we're both going to get to bed by 9:30, and then we like to talk about our day, pillow talk style. And without that, I mean, I still called her, but it's not quite the same. And I think I didn't have the normal triggers in my environment that steer me towards the schedule that does work well for me. I was glad that I was able to get back onto my regular schedule from Thursday onwards last week. So I had basically 3 days off, and then the rest of the time since then, I've been back to my regular schedule.
Hello there, this is Joey. I'm excited to tell you about a project I run where I help imaginative people just like you breathe life into their creative dreams, like writing that book or performing that stand-up comedy set. I know the first step can be daunting. I've been there many times and have helped many people on a similar journey. If you've wondered how to bring those ideas swimming around in your head to life, get in touch. We'll shrink the intimidating dragon of a goal into a cute little lizard of an achievable daily habit that you can do every day to get started and stay moving. Click on the link in the show description to get in touch.
What do you think it is that allows you to bounce back after those disruptions? Because I guess what I have noticed in myself sometimes, and a lot with clients, is that, for instance, they might come through and do the program, and then they're really good, and then let's say that the Easter holidays come up, and like they've got their kids with them for like a full week, whereas they wouldn't otherwise, and their habits get completely disrupted, and then they find it really difficult to come back to it. What do you think is what do you think differentiates like people from yourself that are able to come back to it pretty easily versus other people that just completely fall off the wagon?
Maybe it's partly that I did have a negative response to my schedule over those 3 days, that unlike you, where you were saying you didn't regret it, I did regret it. I felt that what I was doing those evenings was actually not essential for me to have done at night. Part of it is I've got a team that's offshore, and so for them, they keep working until about midnight my time. Right. I feel sometimes a bit of a pull to be there and to be able to answer their questions.
Sure.
And I think that may have been necessary on Monday and Tuesday when I was preparing for the demo, but it wasn't really necessary on Wednesday. And I was basically just working as a way of dealing with some negative feelings that I was experiencing because the demo didn't go that well.
Right.
Almost a numbing out experience. And I just feel a bit of a hangover after that of the next day feeling groggy, not having slept enough because I did have a morning meeting and I couldn't shift my schedule. And an overall feeling of lack of coherence with the way that I want to live. And also FocusBear was telling me not to do it. And I was on the Tuesday and Wednesday, I was using my Windows laptop, which doesn't have FocusBear on it properly.
Going rogue.
And then I went back on the Mac on Thursday night, and the Mac app, I can't really evade my blocks. So I have the structure from the FocusBear app where it's very strict about the time that I get cut off, that I have to get my wife Sandy to put in the password if I want to evade the blocks on my Mac. and I didn't ask her.
I think there's something to be said about what I call keeping certain reminders sacred. So, for instance, one of the things that I need to clean up is that on my Beast machine, the one I play games on and use Stable Diffusion on, at 9:30, I have a voice recording of myself basically saying, "Hey Joey, this is Joey from the future. Can you please start wrapping up? Because if you don't get your sleep, I'm going to suffer tomorrow. So thanks in advance." And then at 9:45, I've got like a more stern Joey saying, "Joey, stop now. I know you can hear me. Joey, stop." And when I first implemented those things, I was when the when the 9:30 thing came up, the friendly Joey saying, "Hey, can you please wrap up?" I was like, "Oh, I don't want stern Joey to come on. So like, I'll stop now." And that was when I was gaming. So it was more in response to gaming. Now that when I'm doing something that feels more productive, it is productive in the scheme of things. I find that I've been leaving those reminders on, and I've been essentially, I guess, I'm not sure if you call it snoozing through it, but I've just been listening to it like all the way through, and now I've just become habituated to it. Now I even just find it funny, like hearing myself going, "Joey, get off. I know you can hear me. Like, I'm talking to you." I just find it funny now. And so it's almost like, I know when I've been trying to be strict with my wake up time, the more you snooze an alarm, the less potent it becomes. Whereas if you just basically say, "Okay, on days where I don't need to wake up at a certain time, I'm just not going to have an alarm. And the days where I do need to wake up at a certain time, I'm going to have an alarm, and I'm going to respect that." And so in the same way, I think when you're talking about like being able to go rogue on your Windows machine, I think in essence that might have saved you a little bit, just because if you had Focus Spare on the Windows machine, maybe you might have been more like inclined to like circumvent it because you're like going, "Oh, I've had a bad day. I just need this."
Yeah, and I think it also potentially alludes to the importance of novelty as well, that after a while, because I did a similar thing with an alarm on my phone that would go off at 9:30 and say, similar kind of message, "Jeremy from the future telling me to go to sleep." And it did work pretty well for about a week.
Yeah.
And then after that, it became background noise.
Yeah.
Wonder about mixing it up. Maybe I should record a voicemail for you and vice versa.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, let's give it a try. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first.
So people with ADHD often talk about the importance of changing things up all the time, that what worked in the past might not always work, and just being prepared to be a little bit Borg-like with your routines, of being willing to adapt, change them up when the blaster or the phaser bolt is no longer effective.
Yeah, right. That's really interesting. I guess having not really experienced ADHD like myself.
I'm not saying that you have it, by the way. I'm just saying
no.
That's something for people with ADHD like me to be cognizant of.
Yeah. It's very eye-opening for me, because I guess when I think about people that are struggling to focus, and I know that's not the only symptom of ADHD, and I guess this is applicable to people that don't have the diagnosis either. Whenever we're struggling to focus, I find that it's one of those things where having like familiarity, like for instance, like pouring yourself a cup of tea and sitting down at your desk with like the same music. I find that has been really good for helping me get into focus, and that seems to be like the opposite of novelty. And so it's I just find it really interesting that the idea that sometimes you can use novelty to help you like get into the zone or yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's a certain type of novelty. It's not that I purposely would disrupt my routine if it's working. It's more that if the routine has stopped working, then it's that Albert Einstein quote of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. Whereas maybe a slight tweak to the routine might result in it being stickier.
Yeah, I think it's always a balance as well. Like sometimes you want to stick to the routine even when it's tough, so that you get the compounding benefits of like all the work you did up front. And sometimes it's a sunk cost fallacy, and you just got to like say, okay, well, if I don't think about like what I did in the past, and I just like think about where I'm at today, like would these behaviors take me to where I want to go? And if not, then pivot in. Yeah.
So are there any tweaks that either of us want to make? I know I've got a trip to Brisbane in 3 weeks, and I will need to prepare for that. So I think for me, it's going to be taking my wife with me. That's going to be my hack. And also the same when I go to Sydney in 2 months, I'll take Sandy with me. I think that really helps if I have her as my body double.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It sounds like she provides you with both an accountability buddy as well as a habits buddy, I think, as well, right? Because I think you guys share certain habits as well.
Yeah, it's mutually supportive that she helps me and I help her.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. I guess in terms of my tweaks, I'm really trying to get disciplined with the idea of treating the generative art a little bit more like social media, in that I have to go into social media to do stuff for my work. And what I do so that I don't get too disrupted is I put a little notepad, and I just write what my objective is. So like, for instance, I might need to go onto LinkedIn to message Jeremy. And so I'll just type up the top, message Jeremy, and then I'll put that on one side of my screen, and then I'll put the social media on the other side of the screen. And I'll inevitably get lost in social media because like I'll see someone's post and I'll interact and all this stuff, and it'll be like, why was I here again? And so I can go back to that notepad, which is occupying half of my screen, and I can pull myself out of the labyrinth, as it were, and actually achieve what I want to. And in a similar way, I think I can do that with my art, because generally I've got a concept that I want to develop, and being more disciplined with the idea of okay, you can play around and this is all fun, but like be disciplined, like have a hypothesis that you want to test and say, okay, well, if I change the setting, what I think will happen, what actually happened, and then like from that I get both the discipline that can possibly pull me out of the tunnel vision I can get, and also learn both about the technology and also learn about the exploratory process of it, and being more strict about sticking to 25 to 30 minute pomodoros, and that is a practice that I am getting better at during the day as well, because it's important for your eyesight and stuff like that as well, to be focused from the screen and look out the window or do something else. So yeah, I've got a lot of things that are working in my direction that will hopefully mean that I can have my stable diffusion and my good discipline and sleep hygiene as well.
Yeah. Another question with that: when you finish up, do you normally finish when you have completed the artwork, or are you prepared to get to a midpoint, and if it's a certain time that you'll just take notes about, or you've already got the notes of what you're working on, and maybe you write down what your next step would be so that when you pick it up again, you can continue from there?
I've been finding a lot of my sessions finish with a relatively finished concept, it's either like a relatively finished concept, or it's okay, I'll probably need to go back a little bit and do some more work. It's not gonna simply happen by hitting generate 3 more times. So when I reach one of those points, I think it's basically good to call it quits. I think the idea of writing what to do next is a great idea, and I should probably apply that a bit more with my art, I think, because it's a great way to pick up from where you left off. And so that's a good tip.
It comes from Oscar Wilde, who talked about how his solution for avoiding writer's block was to always stop mid-sentence, so that it was easy for him to have momentum when he started it up again.
Oh, I'm glad you told me that, because I always misattributed that to Hemingway. So
I'm probably wrong. One of those greats.
I don't know, Jez. You read more than me, so I'd probably go with you.
I haven't read a great deal of either author. Someone said something like that, and I think they also said, don't chase your losses when you're playing with slot machines.
That's a really good one. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you have a good plan.
Yeah, I think we both got good plans. Maybe at the beginning of our next episode, we might check in with how things have gone.
That sounds good.
All right. Well, listeners out there, you'll probably go through similar challenges as well. And hopefully our dialogue has helped give you some ideas about how you might be able to pull yourself out of the routine ditch if you fall off your normal high horse. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Focus and Chill podcast. To listen to other episodes, jump onto podcast.focusbear.io. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or you know someone who'd be a good fit, email us at team@focusbear.io. Otherwise, stay focused, stay chilled, and peace out.